Hey everybody, welcome back to Pushing Pixels. I'm your host Sam Mestis. Today we're gonna do this little Marvel graphic. I don't exactly know where I saw this tutorial. I don't even know if I ever saw a tutorial. Maybe I did. I don't remember. Anyway, so I don't want to take full credit for it in case I saw it somewhere and I don't remember. Anyway, I do this in my class with my 101 students, so I like to make these videos so they can go back and look at them and I can share them with everybody. So here we go. We're looking at this Marvel graphic, and it's kind of a stock Marvel graphic like the one you see before, but we are going to dress it up. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my marble layer off. Right off the bat, you can see I have a text I've rasterized. It says Marvel. I have this white rectangle, and I have the background plate and have it labeled as such. Just so you know, this image size is 15 inches by 10 inches by 100 pixels. You can see that right there. Alright, so here we go. First thing we got to do is we're going to sort of paint this white rectangle with a piece of metal, gradient metal. And I just happen to have one if I open this. And oh, by the way, you can see all my keystrokes down below here on the screen. So I'm going to open up this stock image I have of this metal. And by the way, if you see a blank space, that's the space bar. So here we go. Doesn't look too bad. I am actually going to define this, though, as a pattern. And if you need to define them, you can make anything a pattern. And in this case, I'm going to use this brushed nickel or brushed metal. And to make a pattern, you need to go up to Image, Define Pattern. I'm sorry, Edit, Define Pattern. There you go. Edit, Define Pattern right there. As you approach the bottom, I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to name it. You have to name it, so I'm going to call this brushed metal. There you go. You can see it at the bottom. Very nice. And I'm going to save it. All right, so now it's saved in my PAT file, and I don't need this anymore, so I'm just going to go ahead and close it out. Don't need that. And I'm back to my working project, and on the rectangle, I am going to double-click the layer over here. Just double-click in the gray area, double-click, and that will bring up the Layer Styles box. And you can do a lot of great things in here, and in this case we are going to apply the pattern we just made. Third one up from the bottom, if you just click on the name, it turns it on and shows me my last item, which is the metal I just created. And you can kind of not see it, so let's, oops, get back in there. I'm going to scale it down a bit, maybe, not down, up. Let's see if I can find a good area for it. How far can I scale this down before it starts to repeat? Let's say 23 for the sake of argument. Awesome. Let's do that. Also, it's a little bit too washed out, and I might even change the blend mode to, doesn't do it. Let's leave it in normal for now, and I am going to turn up the opacity a little bit. There we go. Up to 100. That's kind of what I'm looking for. And I'm also going to put a gradient on it, because I kind of want to do a highlight streak across it. So I'm going to click the gradient now. Oh, and there's one already. It's already preset. So let me show you what I'm using for this. I am using a hard light. I'm using black and white as my gradient right there. That guy right there, actually. And I have my angle set, which is what gives me the sort of angle. And if I turn it, you can sort of see what's happening in the preview. But I think I'm going to keep it right there. You can also reach into your actual desktop work area and slide that around wherever you want it. And I have the scale set at 39. That seems pretty good. If you turn up the opacity, you're going to get that. So I'm going to keep my opacity pretty low. I'm going to keep it around 20-ish. And there you go. We could also change it to a radial if we wanted to sort of see how that would look. And actually, that's not too bad. I'm going to keep it reflected. Let's just keep it reflected. I'm going to bring back my size to whatever I had it. Let's say 30. How about that? And my opacity is a little bit much. Maybe I'm going to bring that up. Let's say 50 for the scale. Reflected, 50, hard light, and 15 for opacity. That's not too bad. And okay, so I'm going to click OK. I got my image there. All right, so I have that, and we're going to add a couple more layer effects to it here in a minute. But before we do that, I want to make sure I get the text cut out of it, because I want the text, I want there to be an actual cutout of the text. So to do that, I'm going to go to my text layer there, and on that little icon, I'm going to hold down my control key and click, although it's not showing me my control key. I'm going to click on the icon there, and it will do a selection, which is pretty good. Now I don't need this layer anymore, so I'm just going to turn it off. I'm going to click the eyeball and turn it off. On my box layer there, this guy, I am going to apply a layer mask, and the layer mask is going to basically cut it out for me. So with that selected, my text selected, my box layer highlighted, I'm going to hit the mask tool, third one from the left, click, and it cut out everything. Although it cut out the exact opposite of what I wanted. I really wanted the box, not the text. So let's clean that up. With my mask still selected, and you could tell by it's selected by the brackets around it, the white brackets. If I want to get on the layer itself or the model itself, it would be right here. But I want the mask selected. And with the mask selected, I'm going to hit Command I, and that will invert my selection. Black conceals, white reveals in this case. So I got my square back. If I invert it again, you can see what happens. But this is what we're looking for right here. All right, so that looks pretty good. We have a nice cutout and everything. Let's go back to this. We're going to go back into layer effects for this layer and add a few more things. So double click that layer again. And then we're going to let's add a drop shadow. Let's see what we got here. Whoa, a little bit too far. So click on the drop shadow, and I am going to set it to, something really, really close. I'm going to set the distance to 10, okay? And I'm going to leave the size at 9. It's nice and softens it up a little bit. If you increase the size, it gets a little softer. If you decrease it, the edges get harder. So I'm going to leave it at that, and I have my angle set at 152. And always with drop shadows, I have it set to the blend mode set to multiply. You could change the color of that anytime you want, but we're going to leave it as black right now. Okay, so 71 for opacity, distance 10, size 9. That's pretty good. And if I turn it off, you can kind of see what happens. And it gives it a nice piece of space too. It looks a lot professional, and it looks a little bit better. One of the other tricks I do with this is I actually throw a very soft outer glow on something like this. And that's a little bit too hard. But I got outer glow turned on. And we're just going to tone it down a bit. I'm going to take the size down to, I'm going to keep this subtle. I don't want this to be at all. So let's say 9. I got my spread set to 5. And then maybe tone the opacity down just a bit. I just want it to be very subtle. So I got my opacity set to about 31. All right. And if I turn it off, you'd notice it was gone. It just adds a little bit more weight to the surrounding area around it. Very subtle. Opacity 31, noise 0, spread 6, size 9, and it looks a lot better actually. All right, so we're done with that now. I think we got. Oh, you know what? Before we do that, let's add a little bit of a bevel to this. Right at the top. Whoa, that's a huge bevel. First things first is I'm going to change this to white. I don't need it to be blue. All right, and that's super aggressive, and I'm going to change my contour there. Okay, now let's go. It's a little bit heavy. I'm going to leave the size at about 200-ish, but I'm going to bring the depth about 200, but I'm going to bring the size down drastically. I'm going to leave the size to 2. And if I turn it off and on, you can kind of see what it's doing. It's giving this nice little highlight line across here and across the top. So I have my depth set. By the way, I'm set to smooth, outer bevel. That's what I'm looking for. Size 2, angle 90, altitude 30, and my screen I have set to 100 because I want that white to show up really good right there. And shadows I have set to 0. I'm not really looking too much for shadowing at this point. Mostly I'm looking for these nice little highlights, top and bottom. All right, so let's keep that. Again, 200, size 2. Okay, I think we're done with that. Completely done. Looks good. All right, so let's hit OK and get out of that. Now, let's add some texture to the background image. It's looking a little bland. So I'm going to double click on the plate. That's the red area back there. And we're going to add a pattern to this. And it's timely in that, or not a gradient, a pattern. And it's timely because we're going to use the Spider-Man sort of that mesh gray that's on his uniform, his costume. And I happen to have a Spider-Man type of texture, pattern, I mean. And I'm going to scale that up to about, ooh, let's say 150. How about that? That looks good. And then let's change the blend mode to soft light, perhaps. Ooh, yeah, let's do that. Soft light. And then my opacity, it's a little harsh. Let's trade this down to, let's say 30. That's not too bad. It's not too bad at all. All right, so we got this nice little pattern in the background. Don't click OK yet because we're going to add one more thing to this, and that is we're going to add another gradient. So go ahead and click on the gradient, and it's using the last one I've chosen, which is that that crossbeam. But I'm thinking I'm going to use, in this case, I'm going to use a radial, and I'm not going to scale it up too much, but I do want my opacity up quite a bit, and maybe the size. You can see on the right side what I'm doing there. And I'm just sort of going to move it over here a bit. And I'm going to try maybe soft light. That doesn't work. How about overlay? Overlay is a little better. Let's use overlay. So I have my size set up to, I'm going to set it up to an even 100. So I'm going to have my size set up to an even 100, and you can see what's happening here where my highlight spot is. I'm using black to white again as usual. Radial. And I'm in overlay mode. My opacity is set to 41. I'm going to change that and set it right to 50 so it really gets at some dark area there. So now we have a sort of nice, I'm going to click OK. 47, 41, 100 scale and overlay for my blend mode. And now you can sort of see it takes on a whole new life. If I turn it off, you can sort of see the nice effect I'm getting. That sucks. It's even and flat. This has a little bit more volume and depth now. Okay, so what else do we have to do? Let's do a couple real small things. We're almost done. New layer above your text box there. A new layer above that one. Right down here at the bottom, you can do new layer, or you can go up to layer, new layer, or you can hit Command Control N, and that will also give you a new layer. Either way, it gets you there. New layer. And one thing we're going to do is I want to make some light beams that sort of come across here and wash this whole thing. And I'm going to use the polygonal lasso tool. Polygonal? I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to use that. And I zoomed out far enough so I can see past my canvas. And I'm going to start out here. And I'm going to click. And I'm going to come all the way across here and click. And click again. I didn't mean to hit that Q. And you have to close this tool, so there you go. Now I have a set of marching ants. I'm going to hold down my Shift key, and you can see I got a plus sign right next to my tool now, which means I'm going to add one more selection. And I'm going to do that. So I'm going to click here, and it's still there even though I'm not holding it down. I'm going to click here, click, and then I'm going to come back up. I'm going to hold down my Shift key because I want to make one more. There. I'm going to make just a small one here. All right, and I'm going to close those. Perfect. So now I have 3 selections, and with those selections on that new layer, I'm going to fill them with white. I got to reset my colors first. So I'm going to hit X. I'm sorry, D will reset my color. D is the color reset. And then I'm going to hit X to invert them, my foreground to background, because I want white as my background color. And then I'm going to hit Alt Delete, and it's going to fill those with white. I'll do that again. Alt Option Delete fills with foreground color. That looks pretty good. All right, so Command D to deselect, and I'm going to change the blend mode to this to hard light, and then I'm going to start backing off the opacity quite a bit. They're pretty hard edged. Let's see how far I can get. Let's go to 20, and they're too hard edged, so I'm going to blur them. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and I'm not even going to use much of a blur. I think I'm probably going to use maybe a 2 or 3 pixel blur. 3 pixels looks good. I'm not sure I used hard light. Maybe let's find out soft light. Let's see how that looks. Not so much. Overlay, a little bit better. I'm going to go with hard light. And I'm just going to keep backing it off just a little bit. There you go. So I got these cool beams of light coming across my image, and it's looking pretty good. One last thing I'm going to add is I'm going to add my classic lens flare. I'm a big fan of lens flares, and I just happen to have a brush I made with a lens flare. Perfect. Let's scale that down. I'm bracketing left. That's how you scale down your brush. And I'm just going to pick it right there, and there you go. All right. Let's look at this in final mode. Not too bad. Looks cool, is fun. Enjoy, everybody. I hope you learned something. Thanks for watching.